This is Intro to Java, and in this class we are supposed to create a loan calculator. So let's open NetBeans. So in a lab we had a few weeks ago, we created a GUI. And so with that GUI there were separate components, and each of the components were in different classes. So the difference in this one, instead of having in different classes, I had everything in just one whole class, and each component of the code separated within the methods. So I think it would be helpful if I pulled up something that I did a while ago, which was it was basically just a skeleton of the GUI. So let's see. So let's just run it just to see what we would look like. So in this one it was just an empty window. Nothing had a function. There were no functions, there were no calculations. Clicking anything, typing anything, it didn't matter what it did. It wouldn't do anything, it wouldn't save anywhere. As soon as you click the X button, it's all gone. It was basically just to show what a text box is, or what buttons are, and how to put them into the GUI frame. So let's close this now that we know what was the last project, and let's look at what our project is now. And so what our last project, when we started as a new class, but in this one I started it out as a frame, a J frame. So if you right click loan, press new, and you go to J frame form, it's going to bring up a new, basically like a design, like canvas, like an empty canvas. And by clicking and dragging, you can include all the components that you need to click and drag them into the desired area with the spaces and everything you need. Unlike in the format frame, it was you putting in the size and the colors. You wouldn't be able to see it as it changes. You would have to run it again and to see it. Unlike in the calculator, once you clicked and dragged it, it's already locked into place. And while you're clicking and dragging, the source code is updating. So another thing I wanted to add was from the book. It was also doing it the same thing as we did before, where you would create multiple classes, each with its own function that carry the components of the GUI. But what I realized in this one is that there was a lot of errors that were showing. I don't know what I was doing wrong, but in the end, it basically my window ended up looking like this, presenting it in the same format. All the information is there, and its function is there too. It can calculate the interest and the balance of the loan, and how much you have to pay each month. And so with the design tab, you can change the sizing, and then by right clicking it, you can edit the text of so the text in this one is just an X, because if you're just supposed to cancel, that's its function, to erase anything you wrote. But also by right clicking, you can also add an action, and the action is basically the code. So when you click action for Word, I'm not going to click because then it's going to add another method. It's going to include another method in the code. So if you look at the source code, well, first let's look at the design. So we have the loan calculator, that's one component. we have the text box, and then we have the button. Each of these three has its own method, and its own name, which I added. It's a lot easier to add your own names. I think we learned that in the beginning, that by adding your own um, variable types or variable names, it makes it a lot easier to look through your code and to see what's what, to see what's working where. And by using someone else's variables, you'll get lost in it. You'll get lost in the code, even with the comments and everything. The comments are helpful, but it's nice to add your own abbreviations. So let's look at the source code. So first we have the imports, which is the most important thing, because without importing these pieces, it's not going to work at all, actually. So we have the imports, the classes, and right here the names. And also I wanted to add is that by making a new JFrame, like I showed before, by right clicking new and JFrame form, it's basically like you are creating it's like a template that's made for you. So there are certain chunks of the code that you can't change, you can't edit it, because by taking it apart, um, by editing it, it's almost like you're taking it apart, and then by opening up the design, it's not going to be as fluid, it's not going to work well, it's not going to be as cohesive. So if you are editing this part and you're deleting the comma, or you're editing at the same time and you open design, it's probably not going to open. So I guess that's why they locked it in place. But in the design area, when you delete something, you can, and then it's going to update for you. So a lot of these, it updated as I was typing the new name. Like J text field 1, that was already there. But for lone text label txt lbl, that was something that I put in and it updated for me. So let's scroll down to what I did below. Basically, these large like these pieces of code that I can't modify are the design areas. The areas where I was clicking and dragging, the areas where I was changing the title, moving it left and right, leaving spaces. The thing that I was adding in the design of the code was the function of the boxes and the function of the text boxes. Because again, this whole project is basically a formula. Taking the text box from here, multiplying it by this text box, multiplying by this text box, storing the information, and displaying it in the loan analysis. So in the source code, what we're supposed to add is, again, it's just a template, is the function of each button, each text box. So let's go to a few of the methods. So the first method we have is the button new action performed. So this is what happens when I'm right clicking and adding an action. So the button new is supposed to it's supposed to mean the new loan analysis button. I had a system where anything that started with BUTT was supposed to represent the button, anything that started with TXT was supposed to represent any of the text boxes, and there was more. Anything that started with monthly analysis, anything that isn't TXT or BUTT was a label. If we look at the design, we have the labels, we have the text boxes, and we have the buttons. And when it has TXT, I'm talking about these white spaces right here. And anything with BUTT button for short, it represents all of these buttons. So we look here, and this is supposed to represent the function of the new loan analysis. And what new loan analysis was supposed to do is that once you click it, it's going to clear any of these text boxes. It's going to clear any type of saved data or because a formula where each of these text boxes represent a variable that's going to be multiplied or divided or equal to, and it's just going to clear any of those spaces. So now you have a new expression where you input its own variables with a new number, and so that's all cleared. You type in another number, and then you can compute it at the end once you're done. So txt loan temp, so this text box set text to nothing for the loan, for the interest, for the pay, for the month, for the text analysis area, and then have the button set to false. When you set them to false, it's not going to display it. I also wanted some of these buttons not to display, especially this button. So like say you click new loan analysis and you're already clear, like there's nothing typed in, you don't need to click it again because there's nothing there. So again, it's just going to have this this button just faded out so that you can't click it. So the next one that we have is compute. For the compute button, this is basically the whole the function is basically the whole calculator all in the one button. So if we look at the design, by computing the number of payments, you're going to take the loan calculator, the interest, the number of payments, either or. One of these are going to be blocked out. It's not going to be two at the same time. If you will always be able to type in the loan, the balance amount, the interest rate, the number of payments, or the monthly payments, one or the other. One of them is going to be blocked out. Once you click one, you can't click the other. But if you wanted to exit out of it, you can select it. And it's going to be yellow to let you know you can't click it. Remember that. To loan balance. Okay. And so if we look at the code, it says if the loan template is equal to nothing, it's going to pull in a null, or at least an error message that you have to enter the amount of the loan. It's a calculator, and a lot of computer formulas, if you put in a null answer or an answer that is not applicable, it's not going to work. It's not going to function. If you put 0, or if you put like a letter, well 0 works because again, it's a calculator and a calculator uses numbers. But if you put a letter, it's going to be the same thing as null because it's based on numbers. And a lot of computer applications work literally. So, and then we have the else. Take the loan number, which is like the loan balance, and then that's going to be put into a string. The next if statement is if the integer is equal to nothing. If there's nothing typed in, you must enter the interest rate. And so that's another one. And then for the third text we have, you must enter the number of payments. And then the same thing again. And then right now we have the formula. The payment is equal to the loan plus the function, the loan times the interest divided by 100. And so when we type these, whatever number that we put into the text boxes, it's going to be loaded into a string, and then the string can be added here, and the string is the loan, and the string holds whatever number that the user typed in. And so another thing we wanted to have is for these white box spaces to display not just the numbers, because again, you don't want to just look at numbers, you want to look at what the number corresponds to, what it means, or like let's test it out. Actually, let's look at it again. So it's going to display what it is. So the consumer loan GUI project, the amount of the loan, which is what the user typed, the number of payments, the monthly payments, and the total loan payments, and then a thank you, and then it's done. So that's what's going to be in the area. And then you have the new, which is enabled, and then the compute, which is false because you already computed it. So the button new, that's going to be the new button. The but compute is going to be faded while the other one isn't, because again, you're not going to compute what you already computed, and there's nothing there in the form. And so in the next one, we have the action for the number. Which one is this one? That one was for the X's. So when you click one of the X's here, it's going to open up another text box. And then once you click X, this is going to be done on yellow, and then you can type it in the number of monthly payments, or the how much they told you have, like if you were given a balance, or like if you already had a balance and the bank gives you an interest and say, oh hey, you have $300, you can type it in, but they didn't give you how many years, then usually they give you all the information, but if you just didn't have that information on hand, it's going to compute it for you. So for the number book button, it's going to be visible. You can edit the background. The color is going to be white, and then yellow. It's basically just what it's supposed to do, what it's supposed to look like. And then this is for the month button. And then I think that's all the buttons that we use. Oh, and the exit button too, which was just system exit. And so let's look at how the design looks. Let's minimize this to make it easier. So we have the loan calculator. I think it would be easier if I deleted these X's because they don't really have, they don't have a function. I should delete that, but so let's do a number. Let's do 2,000, and the interest rate is 1%, and you have 12 months, or you have 12 payments. This is in yellow because we are typing here. Again, I said before that you can either type in the number of payments or the monthly payments. Whatever is in yellow, it's going to compute it for you. You don't have to type it in. But if I want to exit out and type in another number, let's do I think I might have done something wrong, but let's just try. Let's do 12, 1, and then 2,000. And let's compute the numbers. And we have 2,000, number of payments. I need to edit that. But yeah, it should be number of, or the interest payment, which is 1%. And so we have to pay 2,200 with the interest. We have to pay $168.33 per month. And then thank you. And then by clicking exit, we exit it out. There are some scroll buttons added there. And like I said before, it computed that information for you. 168.33. And then let's click exit. And then I exit it for us. But like I was saying, if we wanted to add a function to, let's see, it's going to add a new method. it's going to add for button, integer, action performed. Let's go to design, see what we clicked. We clicked the button for the integer, for the interest. And then we go to source, it's this corresponding method for that. Yeah. And that's the whole project. But let me just edit this to make it so that it's amount of loan, interest amount, right, looks good. And then if we run it again, it should show the new interest amount, $2. Okay, so that's everything. And if we click new, it's going to reset everything. And then that's everything.